everybody, welcome and thank you very much for joining me today. Have you ever been sad because you were right? Well, I am. Yesterday I was cleaning out some of my email and found one or two email I had missed, and in which I was taken to task about my stand on King Charles. Some people even got downright nasty. And, I've said this before and I'll say it again just to remind you or to tell the people who had recently joined, just a gentle reminder why, over time, I started liking King Charles the man less and less. You see, I promise you, I get far more threats and hate mail regarding my stance on Charles than I do for my stance on Meghan Markle. And all of this hate mail are coming from women. Okay, now that said, what now? I was right. I'm still right. And what is done, and it is not going to change. So I'm going to be right in the future as well. Now, true, loyal British monarchists, Dan Whitten, Neil Shawn, Trevor Colt, ex-British Army Paz 49, and many others, are now calling the king out. But you see, it is apparently okay for them to do so, and it was never okay for me. Why? Because I'm not British? Because I do not have a British passport? Well, I've met people who do have a British passport, who know less about Britain than me. I know people who have British passports who cannot even name the Queen's 4 children. I know people with British passports who have not set foot in Britain since they were babies or small children. But never mind. I could see the migrant trouble brewing. Why? Because I can honestly say, been there, done that. South Africa had similar issues. They just did not move into 4- and 5-star hotels. Also, because of the corruption in my country, we have learned to not just blindly trust someone, particularly not if they have some sort of power or money. I've read, say, about 2-3 books on Charles by now, have read articles in magazines, newspapers, listened to Diana's Bashir interview, read about 3 books on Diana. I read a book on Queen Elizabeth II, one on Prince Philip, and a few on the royal family. And from it all, I put a picture together of a man whom I do not like much. Yes, I admit that he's not all bad. Yes, I admit that things also happened to him which he did not deserve. For instance, no one deserves cancer, in my opinion. But none of his good deeds, of which, in my opinion, most were vanity projects and a form of buying loyalty. But never mind. No matter how sympathetic I am with his condition, I still do not trust or like him. And now, after all the hurt, the threats and death wishes, others, true, loyal, lovely British people, are picking up on the same stuff. And they're talking about it, particularly on YouTube. And now no one is saying anything. Are they also being threatened? Anyway, again, the point is that I saw trouble looming even before Charles became king. Not because I'm so clever, so brilliant, or a clairvoyant. No, but because I recognized certain things, certain aspects of the man, and I recognized it because of where I grew up, how I grew up, what I've lived through, and what I have seen in my lifetime. Now, just like I catch up on 3i Atlas every night or every morning, I also check British news, American and South African news, and when I see the guts and the strength of the British men and women who stood up and said, "We are taking our country back," I can't help but feel pride. Pride in people who actually physically stand up for what they believe in and who are not just armchair warriors. However, my friends, I fear for you because despite your pride and guts, your government and your king is not backing you up. Beyond that, because of your two leaders, Keir Starmer and Charles Windsor, you face the further danger of an unprotected country and unprotected borders. And why? Well, because nobody is joining the British Army. And why not? Well, because no one wants to fight for your Prime Minister or your King anymore. You want to know where your country stands on these two men? Then don't believe the polls, even if it's put out as a .gov poll. Look instead at the fact that 46,000 public institutions declined a free portrait of Charles, and those 46,000 made up 70% of the eligible bodies. Now, we will have to face it. There's unrest in the United Kingdom. And where are your leaders? On holiday. Now, both men interrupted their summer holiday, Keir by going to Washington and Charles by attending a service and event for VJ Day. But unless something earth-shattering happens, they will remain on holiday until early or mid-September. I do not know what to tell you. I remember being unable to sleep, glued to my laptop, jumping from one broadcast to another when we had those huge riots, what the rest of the world called xenophobic riots. I remember having to urgently go see my parents because my dad was not well, and seeing the remnants of tires which was burnt in the street, the black on walls where the flames licked the side of the buildings. I saw this more than once in my lifetime. Also when Jacob Zuma was arrested. And what did our leaders do? Recorded messages or silence? At least I gained a bit of respect back when Cyril Ramaphosa cried on television during COVID. But that is another story completely. The point I'm trying to make is that I now feel the same fear and anger when I listen to various stations, channels, and read various papers, like I was at the time of the riots here. I'm angry at the guys sitting in their mansions surrounded by security, watching their gold Rolexes to see whether it is time for their next gin and tonic or whiskey or beer or whatever. Talking about alcohol, I'm not sure how true this is, but somebody told me that King Charles is self-medicating with alcohol and cannabis to manage his pain. Well, I don't mean it badly because it would not be strange at all. My father was even less of a drinker than Charles, but in the months before his death, he had a couple of drinks per day. Not to the point where he was drunk, but say one at lunch, one mid-afternoon, and 2 drinks at night. My mom, however, was worried because, remember, she lived her whole life with him and she knew this was out of the ordinary. But the doctor told her to give him what he wants because he he is or he was self-medicating, making the transition easier for himself. Now, that is indeed very sad, but also very true. So, I mean, I would honestly, if this was true of King Charles, I would not blame him at all. Okay, guys, a rather serious and sad video for a Friday afternoon. But I will try my best to make the next one more entertaining and uplifting. So until then, please take care of yourselves and stay safe. Bye.